So enough from me. You're not here for that. You are here for a wonderful celebration of our Rotary Person of the Year. And the person who's going to help kick that off is the chairperson of that committee that does that great work, Jeff Fleming.
Thank you, President Joanne. I'm standing here today not to introduce our awardee. That will come in just a moment. I'm here more than anything else to express gratitude to the committee for the hard work that the committee members did in evaluating the nominees for Rotary Person of the Year and making a choice that you'll find in a moment is a truly amazing individual. Margaret, in her invocation, incorporated a lot of the criteria that we use for selecting the awardee. It is about work and career. There are plenty of awards in our community that celebrate civic involvement or philanthropy or heroism. This award celebrates a career and the impact that that career has had on our entire community. Let me just briefly conclude by saying an important element in the committee's work every year is receiving nominees. We are always amazed, people that we are surprised to learn the depth, the accomplishments that individuals have brought to our community through their work. But the key element is that someone in our club nominated these people, and that is how we can get our job done. In this case, the nomination came from John Ridley, and I'm very appreciative, John. And with that, I'm going to hand the podium over to you to introduce Michael Barber, our Rotary Person of the Year.
It occurs occasionally, but only occasionally, that in the course of human events, the ambitions and endeavors of an industrious individual, woke to the entire breadth of possibilities within a profession, finds harmony with an industry similarly woke to identifying its endeavors as well as its bottom line. And in concert, they both do well by doing good, and communities of folk prosper. If and when that circumstance occurs, it is altogether fitting and proper that that uniquely singular phenomenon is identified and celebrated. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what brings you and me together today to recognize the fruitful relationship between Mr. Michael J. Barber and the General Electric Corporation and chronicle it with the Rotary Club of Milwaukee's Person of the Year Award 2018. Now, General Electric is the fourth largest company in the world. It's a conglomerate comprised of a dozen or so very disparate subsidiaries. The application of technology to the field of healthcare is one of their core divisions, and Michael Barber's current role as a GE officer, as well as chief engineer for GE Healthcare, is very consequential to that subsidiary's mission to deliver products that are of high quality, grow share, and improve profitability. Leading up to his current position, Mr. Barber's had a variety of roles in engineering, operations, and product management, and performed all with great distinction over the 30-plus years of his career with GE. Not so long ago, GE began to contemplate the possibility of the profound benefits worldwide if the company were to become even more strategic in the application of technology to healthcare issues. They turned to Mr. Barber to lead that project. His specific mandate was to formulate methodologies for GE to lead improvement in the quality of medical care by the use of technology, to reduce the cost of medical procedures and processes through the appropriate use of technologies, and increase global access to those technologies and those services essential to health. Given the enormity of the task, remarkably, Barber and his team delivered on each and every one of those hefty goals, and for good measure, established key partnerships for GE related to the areas of cancer, maternal and newborn health, and emerging markets. A national print publication critically focused on the intersection of technology, business, and design, labeled that one accomplishment as one of the most outstanding innovations related to global health of the era. Now, equally significant in the GE barbershop relationship is people in places local and worldwide. The African American Forum is General Electric's premier affinity group. Michael is actively involved in this activity that addresses professional development for the company's African American employees. Yet another of Mr. Barber's roles includes being the executive sponsor for the sustainability portion of GE's $30 million philanthropic commitment to improve healthcare in sub-Saharan Africa. Here in Wisconsin, GE has a very significant economic presence, not the least of which involves some 25,000 jobs, and many of them in the Milwaukee area. General Electric encourages their workforce to be involved in their community. So in that regard, Mr. Barber brought the resources of GE Healthcare to support UWM College of Engineering in their student research projects. Through his efforts, GE Healthcare was the founding partner of a $3 million GE UWM Center for Advanced Embedded Systems, that it was an endeavor, and also a GE Girls at MSOE STEM project. Mr. Barber's advocacy with the GE Foundation was instrumental in that group's grant of $20 million to Milwaukee Public Schools in 2011. From his leadership position in Waukesha, Mr. Barber has facilitated our area GE's employees' efforts in community service. He was instrumental in the origination of the Milwaukee area GE Community Service Day, and since 1994, at least 2,000 of his coworkers and he spend a day sprucing up local schools. His coworkers here and he also engage in freelance community-enhancing pursuits, such as sharing skill-building concepts with middle and high school students. Additionally, his teammates and Mr. Barber offer their administrative and process expertise to schools and other entities requesting such guidance. A native of Milwaukee, Mr. Barber attended public schools here and found his role models right within his household. Having been exposed while a teen to the possibilities of a career in engineering and intrigued by it, Mr. Barber stayed true to his Milwaukee orientation, and after graduating high school, enrolled in our local, wonderful edifice of education, the Milwaukee School of Engineering. It is tribute to Mr. Barber's dedication to his education and the prowess of MSOE that he graduated from that institution fully prepared to embrace and ultimately enhance the General Electric Corporation. Since then, Mr. Barber has been privileged to serve as an MSOE regent. Barber and his wife, Jackie, they live in Mequon. Interestingly, Mrs. Hurd Barber is also an MSOE graduate and an engineer with notable accomplishments in that field and also in public life. As a couple, the Barbers have enjoyed endowing a scholarship at MSOE. Their interests range from investments in the Milwaukee Bucks to investments in the Milwaukee Rep. They define a pleasant weekend as a couple, with one spent tutoring high school or college students in their home. The Barbers have two very, very accomplished children, each of whom have secured postgraduate degrees and are embarking in their own careers. So watch the horizon, people. I think there's more of those Barbers on the way. One of Mr. Barber's gifts is the one of gab. The man is a very accomplished public speaker, invited to share his knowledge of technology in medicine, or product innovation, or diversity in the workplace. He's lectured at Harvard Business School, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, UW-Madison, and has been an invited speaker at the Aspen Institute, Colorado, World Health Organization, Geneva, International Course on Imaging, Davos, and World Medical Congress in Dubai. If it happened that you couldn't make it to any of those opportunities, then check out his TED Talk. And speaking of information distributed by technology, before President Joanne presents Mr. Barber with his award, we'd like to share a congratulatory video from John Flannery, the CEO and Chairman of General Electric. And having said that, I'm done here.
Hi, I'm John Flannery with GE, and I'd like to congratulate Mike Barber on winning the 2018 award. Mike is an incredible leader for us in the healthcare business. I ran that business for 3 years before my current job and got to know Mike well. He's got 35 years experience in our business, engineer by background. He's been all in the different segments of our business, our x-ray business, MR, CT, etc. Deep engineering experience. But Mike was always just a great product leader and really understood how to take the engineering technology into the marketplace. So he's been a big figure in our engineering business. He's been a big figure in our diversity activity. Mike's been a mentor to many, many people and really leading the company's drive on diversity, the company's drive on health imagination. He's just been a leader of a lot of initiatives across GE. And right now, Mike runs really one of our most successful businesses. It's a MICT business, $3 billion franchise. I asked Mike to take this business over about 3 years ago. It was struggling, and I really need somebody with the experience and the character and the leadership especially to pull that team together, and it has flourished under Mike's leadership. So when I got the note saying, could I do this email, the first thing I thought to myself with a little smile was, I can't imagine a more deserving person, or frankly, a person of higher character and integrity than Mike Barber. So, Mike, thanks for everything you've done, and congratulations on your award.
Michael, in a second, I'm going to ask you to come up because you're going to take the stage and continue the program. But I want to share just a small story that Jackie gave me permission to share. Obviously, we've just heard what a great connector Michael is, and that really resonates here with us as Rotarians. My story really is that in as much as we're giving this award today for being Person of the Year in 2018, he actually won this award in the Anton household about 8 or 9 years ago when my son was participating in just this introductory program that opened the doors to him to learn about and be exposed to GE. So this little gawky little freshman in high school showed up at the program, and it was really a great opportunity for him. Wasn't sure what he was going to do, but one person who left his mark, and he reminded me, my son reminded me of this today when I told him that Mr. Barber was getting this award. He said, Mr. Barber, he did everything for me in that program. He was so cool. He was so smart. And he cared about what we did and what we wanted to do. And he made sure that I had his business card and that I could call him at any time. So, Michael, he's about to graduate from law school. He might be giving you a phone call. No, I'm kidding. With that, I just want to tell you that Michael left such an impression all those years ago that I had to remind him of that story, and I wanted to share it with you because that's who he is. That's what my son is, one of thousands of people whose lives he's touched. And with that, we want to give our warm Rotary congratulations to Michael Barber.
Thank you, everyone, for that. I really appreciate it. This was unexpected. Getting my laptop set up here. First off, I want to thank the Rotary Club. There's so much work that you do through the community, throughout the world. As John said, I do a lot in global health and have done, so the work that you do globally around polio eradication is huge. Makes a big difference all around the world. Also, the activities that happen locally, the Arboretum, the work that you do to make sure that the community is doing what it should do. The work that you do for the scholarship committee is huge. All of you know I have somebody pretty special to me that's also special to Rotary, my wife Jackie. and she really is the star of the household, and all the things that she's done for me as a great, wonderful wife, the things that she's done for our kids, and all that. So, Jackie, thank you so much for all of that. I appreciate my colleagues from GE making it out, the team from MSOE, which has such an impression on me. I first went to MSOE as a 10th grader, not to school, but to a summer program that my mother saw in the paper about for kids who are interested in engineering. At the time, I sort of liked math and science. I really didn't have a choice in the matter. She said, "You are going to this program on Saturdays." So I did that, but I thank you to my wife and my family that's here as well. They've always been there for me. One of the reasons why Jackie and I stayed in Milwaukee is so our kids could grow up close to family because of the influence that they've had in our lives and the influence we know that they'd have in our kids' lives as well. My son Justin is here as well, and he's starting the next generation of people at GE. I did convince him to come and work at the company. This presentation, if any of you are physicians, or work at a hospital, I have to put this up. I'm not trying to sell anything. Some of the technology things that I'll talk about are not yet publicly available and are not approved by the FDA, but with that, I can talk about it. One of the things I like to do is start a presentation with this picture. This picture is one in Indonesia. That is, of course, a mother who's pregnant who's on the table. And there's a woman that's holding a small device that's looking at things inside her belly. That's an ultrasound machine. It's a handheld ultrasound machine we came out with about 7-8 years ago. And it was thought of more for a primary care physician in the U.S. to be able to look at, instead of just listening to your heart, to be able to see it at the same time. There's more information that can be had. But as I was doing the work from a global health perspective, one of the things that I found out that more babies are born without a hospital, in the village, in the home, than babies that are born in hospitals. But when that happens, there are times when the mother needs to get to the hospital for an attended birth. If the baby is multiple babies, so if there's twins or more, if the baby's breech, meaning is not pointed towards the birth canal, or if the placenta is covering the birth canal. And if you're in Indonesia, where you live on an island, because Indonesia is made up of 1,000 islands, you don't have the time when it's discovered with the midwife that you, in fact, need to travel to have that birth. It's too late. So we devised this ultrasound machine, and we came up with training using a university in the U.S. that we were able to train midwives in about 10 days to be able to determine if those conditions were present, as well as in the umbilical cord wrapped around the baby's neck. So we worked with the UN, got this done, went to Indonesia, went to sub-Saharan Africa, and got this product made. This is being used for that. That is a midwife that's doing it. The other thing that's very important about this picture, because we believe, and part of our mantra at GE is our responsibility is to improve lives in moments that matter. Because patients come in contact with our equipment at their most vulnerable state, all the way from a premature baby to somebody very old who has to have scans, who's fallen, who has cancer. So people are very vulnerable. But the other thing that's important is in the picture is there's a son off in the background. So it's not just the patient, but it's also their family. There's a big impact as well. So we take that very seriously, that our equipment needs to be able to help that clinician, help that patient, so they can be there for their family. GE Healthcare is a large organization. We have multiple facilities all over the world. As Dr. Ridley said, here in southeastern Wisconsin, we're based in our imaging business. So MR machines, CT machines, X-ray machines, PET machines, all of those are done here and exported around the world. Ultrasound also has a large presence here. Our business which touches patients, I call it maternal infant care, is one of those. Anesthesia machines are in Madison, Wisconsin, through an acquisition that we've done. So we're very present here in southeastern Wisconsin. We also have a big IT business. Software is becoming a bigger and bigger deal in hospitals. If you can imagine, every piece of film that used to exist in hospitals would have to be stored and kept for 7 to 10 years. So if you had all that done, when a hospital would move from one place, one of their biggest expenses was moving the film vault, because it had to be stored very securely. That's now all digitized. It's all software. We have a very large picture and archiving business that's there. And then our most recent business, and it's been over a decade that we've been in it, in the life science spaces. So thinking about biopharmaceuticals, so all of the things that are now available that are very precise in terms of helping patients. We make purification equipment. We don't make those pharmaceuticals, but we make the equipment that is used to produce those. So if someone here has diabetes and they're on insulin, there's an 85% chance that either a reagent, a bioreactor, or something was made by GE Healthcare. Again, here in Milwaukee, we have a large economic impact in the area through ourselves as well as our suppliers. We have a very large supply base from across the area. We've been in Wisconsin since the late 40s at Electric Avenue, a small street just south of Miller Park. There was a GE Hot Point plant there as well as the medical plant, and so the little name was named Electric Avenue. We're still there. The Hot Point plant has been gone for a while, but we're very excited by that. We have some other smaller businesses, sales and services offices. Recently, our power division bought up Waukesha Engine, so that's also part of GE. The bigger thing about GE in Wisconsin and its community is the things that we allow and we encourage for our employees to be part of the community, to provide, and so having a passion about things outside of the company, outside of work, and either helping that through time off, encouragement, helping that sometimes through philanthropy. But we don't just like writing a check, so to speak. We like it when our employees can use their skills, get development by being part of organizations because it's so very important, because we are part of the community. We're just not a company that's here to utilize resources and employees. We also want to help grow the community. That's so very important to us. The other thing that I like to think about from a professional as well as a personal perspective, I'm here at a moment in time. My team is here at a moment in time. But we stand on the shoulders of giants and we try to lift up and do even more than with the tools that they blessed us with. So in radiology, Marie Curie was the person who discovered how x-rays could be used to look inside of the human body non-invasively. There's a very famous image of her hand that she's done, and she took many images of her hand, didn't understand all of the things that were problematic, and so her hand got deformed and she actually got cancer from doing this. But her inventions were also used in World War I. It was the first time where a soldier who got wounded, instead of having to go hundreds of miles and dying before they got to a hospital, they could get their bodies x-rayed just a few, not on the front lines, but a few miles away, and that was used. And about the same time that was going on, William Coolidge, now this is the relationship to GE, in our research lab in upstate New York, he was a scientist working on filaments. Remember GE, light bulbs, tungsten filaments? Those are the same technology that's used in x-ray tubes. So he was the person that came up with some fundamental breakthroughs and how tungsten could be used to make x-ray tubes more powerful, more efficient, and being able to do that. We still talk about our x-ray tubes as the Coolidge tube. And this is just a press release from 1919 when GE is announcing to the Rankin Ray Society to come and see what he's done. So these are people that we stand on their shoulders. This one is Sir Godfrey Hounsfield. He was a math person. He worked for a company called Electrical and Musical Incorporated. It was in the UK. He was an engineer working on radar systems and computers. And he read about something about this new imaging technique. And he actually came up with the math that made it possible to do CT scans. That's one of the first head scans that was ever done. EMI, more commonly known on the music side in the 60s, they were the label for the Beatles. So there's a lot of conjecture about the profits from the Beatles went to make CT popular and all those things. But if you really understand and look back, what happened was it was an electronics company doing radar systems and computers and other things. When he started doing this medical stuff, they said, we don't know what this is all about. They actually didn't fund it as much as possible. They were more concerned about the Beatles and the contract disputes they had during that piece in time. So they actually pushed it out. Once this company and the inventions were starting to be used, they couldn't deal with people coming to them saying, we want one of these systems, we want one of these systems. So in fact, they sold their IP to GE in about 1980. So again, very, very happy about that. Other things from a personal perspective, I talked about the 60s. I was born in 1960. This was at a time in Wisconsin when there was a lot of things going on. My wife and I did one of our bucket list things and went to the Kentucky Derby this year. I looked at the Wall Street Journal and there was an obituary for Vel Phillips. If your obituary is in the Wall Street Journal, you are a giant. And for those of you that knew Miss Phillips, she was a lady of small stature like Jackie that had a big impact. But the work that she did around fair and open housing in the Milwaukee area makes it possible for myself and my wife to live in Mequon and not live under the systemic discrimination that happened at that point in time. Another person, personally, is Lloyd Barbie, not as well known as Val Phillips, but very important. He was an attorney from a civil rights perspective, and he brought the lawsuit in Milwaukee to integrate the public school systems. And he was also a neighbor of my parents. And I know there were conversations going on because even though Brown versus the Board of Education decided that separate but equal was not possible in the late 50s, Milwaukee, when I was going to school in the 60s and 70s, didn't have that. And he explained to a number of the people in the neighborhood that for the same grade level, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 4th grade, the books that were used in my zip code of 53205 were 1 or 2 years behind the books that were used in other zip codes for no good reason. It wasn't that the kids couldn't understand. It was done for financial reasons, done for a variety of reasons, but it left those kids behind. My mother didn't want that to happen for me. So she also understood that there was the reason that the Milwaukee school systems didn't have to integrate at that point in time is they had open enrollment. There was open enrollment, so you could go to school outside of your district. But open enrollment was only available for a sliver of time, and you had to know what time it was, and it changed every year, and it was different for every school. My mother figured it out. So for 3rd grade, I was moved to a school which was about an hour away from my house. So we didn't have yellow school buses, so I rode the city bus to school to do that. But then when it was time for me to take that engineering program when I was in the 10th grade, I was prepared. When it was time for me to go to MSOE, which is a very rigorous curriculum, I was prepared and being able to do that. So I know that the things around making sure public school systems are strong and robust and making sure fair and equal opportunities are available like Val Phillips and Lloyd Barbie did is still very important to this day. From a healthcare perspective and why GE Healthcare, it's been 37 years for me now at GE in the healthcare business. It's a wonderful business. It does a lot of great needs. There's a big purpose for it. The opportunities there are endless because of the merger of technology, understanding human physiology, and then developing things that can impact people all around the world. GE Healthcare, I've been talking for a little over 10 minutes. During that period of time, about 160,000 scans have been taken on our equipment all around the world. There's probably over 1,000 surgeries that have started with that the person is reliant on our anesthesia machine to make sure they don't feel pain and that they're unconscious and the surgeons can do what they need to do. Our ICU monitoring equipment is being used and probably has recorded in this period of time about 1 billion heartbeats and breaths that people are taking to make sure in critical care those things are happening. So it's just a massive, massive responsibility that we have to make sure this equipment works. Even with all that, there's about 7 billion people in the world. 5.8 don't have access to life-saving technology. So there's much more work to be done. Cost is another issue. In the U.S., we spend almost 20% of our GDP on healthcare, but still 1 in 3 patients are misdiagnosed. And somebody said, oh, that's not possible. Well, if you think about is the diagnosis made at the right time and it's made such that they get to the right therapy, those things only happen 2/3 of the time. So there's a lot of room still for improvements that can be made. But there is a very bright future. Things that are being worked on around understanding the outcomes. Why does it really matter for patients? Looking at the productivity and efficiency. Understanding what's going on for emerging markets. Because many times those products and technologies that can be used in an emerging market to make it possible for a less trained person to do it can be used to lower costs and improve access even here in the U.S. And then really looking at and understanding and bringing together the physics of the systems, the biology of disease, chemistry of what can be found. We call that precision health. And that's something we're working very hard on. Advanced imaging, data integration, and then artificial intelligence. Those things are really making this really possible. This is just what's possible on a routine CT scanner today. A CT scanner rotates around the patient's body. It rotates, you can think about the equipment that's on that scanner moving around. It's about equivalent weight of one of those little Fiats or a VW Bug. It rotates around 4 times a second. The alignment of that is within the width of a human hair. And when you can do that, you can scan a patient's body from their head to their toe, about the width of a credit card, slicing through the body. You can do that in about a minute. Remember I said Jeffrey Huntsville took 20 minutes just to scan a head, and it was about that thick, 3 or 4 inches. Now it's about the width of a credit card in a minute from head to toe. So you can get images like this. You can look at somebody's vasculature. The very bright dots on that is calcium buildup for that patient, and between his kidneys there's a bulge. It's an aneurysm. If it doesn't get taken care of, that aneurysm can burst and the person can pass away within minutes. So being able to see this and understand this, it does things where you can intervene and save a person's life. NMR, the picture on the left is someone's brain, but looking at the electrical signals that are there, being able to map to understand where the synapses and where the neurons are connected. The picture on the right is called functional MR. Now if somebody is when they tap on their fingers, or they talk, or you show them a picture, you can see what part of the brain lights up. Why is that important? If somebody has a tumor, and you want a surgeon, brain surgeon has to go in and try to extract that tumor or understand, now they can plan their path that they go so they can disturb the least part of the brain. Or they can see where there's a lot of synapses and signals that if they go through there, it's likely to get rewired. So when you hear that somebody has an inoperable tumor, it's because they were able to use this and determine if they would go and take out that tumor, a lot of their function wouldn't be there, and they just wouldn't be able to get to it. And therefore, they need some type of chemical treatment, chemotherapy versus surgery, or maybe radiation therapy. So it's important to understand that, and we can do that with the MR imaging. Here's an ultrasound image. Ultrasound is used for a lot of real-time things, looking at the heart. That's blood flow. At the bottom, those gray things opening up, those are the valves. And you can see how the blood washes in and washes out into a heart. We've combined that, and that's looking at the heart sort of longitudinally. If you look at the heart in a vertical cross-section, now on the left, that's the valve, actually opening and closing. Every beat, seeing what's going on with that valve. And then adding the blood flow to the right, you don't want to have the blue. The blue is late phase blood flow. So that blood is not getting all the way through the valve or it's regurgitating back in. And if you look closely, there are some defects in the valve. So now the physician knows that this person actually needs a procedure to get their valve replaced. Things that they wouldn't be able to see so precisely before and seeing this routine in ultrasound imaging now. And then in the future, this is prostate cancer, a cancer that is very prevalent in men. One, though, that can be extremely aggressive, or it can be not so aggressive. There's different studies that have been done that said upwards of 35-40% of men, 90, 95 years old, that die for other reasons, have prostate cancer. The prostate cancer didn't kill them, though. There's other times where it can be very aggressive. So we can image the prostate, and we can do a lot of things, but you really need to know what's happening at the cellular level. So our research center is working with technology around pathology. So you can take a tissue sample, and instead of just being able to do 1 or 2 biomarkers to determine what's going on because you destroy the tissue in conventional ways, we come up with new ways where we can do that 10, 15, 20 times on the same piece of tissue using different biomarkers. Those biomarkers can tell you, is the cancer just on the surface of the cells? Is it in the cytoplasm? Is it in the nucleus? Is it diffuse? What type of it is? And all of that is very important to determine, does a person need a prostatectomy? Can they live with the cancer? And all of those things. So combining all that information, using AI and deep learning is something that's going on and becoming very prevalent in being able to do that. We call that being able to take the combination of radiology and genomic information, radiogenomics. So you'll start reading more and more out there about how institutions around the world are using these technologies in new and different ways. And again, it takes a group of people to be able to do this. So we work a lot with academic universities. University of Wisconsin-Madison is a big partner of ours, but you see there are many others, including the Olympic Committee and work that's done there. Pharma, because again, we do the diagnostics, but there has to be some intervention, getting to the right therapy, working with them to make sure that as they come out with more targeted drugs that work very effectively, but they only work in 30% of the population, which 30% is it? Can we identify those people appropriately to do that? Stryker, if any of you like me and had a hip replacement or something, Stryker's coming out and doing 3D printing. So taking a CT scan or an MR scan of your particular body, getting a 3D so that implant is perfectly sized and fit for you. And then we have a lot of technology partners. So when you hear about Apple, you hear about Intel, NVIDIA, all these companies out there doing great things around technology, we use those in our products. And we challenge them to actually do more than what they typically would because of the needs that we have in our product line. So it's very important for us to understand where technology is going, but it's really a combination. And these things are right at our fingertips. And it's just so exciting to continue to work in this space so we can bring new life-saving care and better health for people around the world. Because technology is great, but we always remember all those employees, and be assured if you know somebody in your community that works at GE Healthcare, it's about improving lives in moments that matter. In many different settings, in many different ways, we continue to do this now, and we'll continue to do that in the future. And again, it happens through a lot of great work by a lot of people, some fantastic scientists all around the world. I'm so thrilled to be a part of the organization. I'm thrilled to be a part of this community. And I, again, thank Rotary for all that they've done for me and for the community. Thanks. And I understand there's a little time for a few questions, if anyone has a question. Yes, the question was around deep learning and radiogenomics. Deep learning is a technology, artificial intelligence, neural nets have been talked about for 20 years. But because of the increase in computing power that's available today that you can get for very effective cost points, you can do things, and that's where, the cat videos and all the things that Google does to be able to recognize animals, they're using deep learning to do that. We use deep learning when you think about medical information in the human genome. There's billions of base pairs and other things that are going on in a person's body. When you want to be able to sequence that and marry it up with image information from that patient, you can use those same technologies of deep learning to really understand how does this fit versus a broad set of the population. So that's where the deep learning piece comes in. So it's a tool that we use to be able to do that.
How's it doing now?
The healthcare unit overall is doing well because the demographics around the world, people need our equipment. We are doing it more effectively. The particular group that I was in had launched a product and had some issues with the product, and we had to get some things turned around to make sure we're very responsive to the customers and making sure, again, those products work when somebody wants them to work. So again, with the help of a great team, we're able to turn that around, and we're growing very well right now. Yes, in the back.
There are several competitors in this field that you're involved in. I'm thinking maybe of Siemens, Philips, and those folks. Are you on identical paths in research and development, or how is this?
The questions around the competitors, Siemens, Philips. We also have local competitors in different markets in Japan, China, and those places. So I think it's all about the application of technology. So they have access to the similar kinds of technology that we do. We have a big advantage for two things: our global scale, our global research center, where we're able to really fundamentally understand not only the device physics that is so material science, but we also use them to understand the biology of disease. And so being able to do both of those gives us the ability to do products and leverage technology to have the innovations which are most impactful. So we believe we have that advantage. We also have the advantage that we are all across the world. So things that we learn serving patients in Southeast Asia can be leveraged for equipment that we have here. And so being able to do those things. So AI, I talked about being used in radiogenomics. AI is being used on our products to make it easier to use. Because when you're in China or Southeast Asia, in the US, you might have one doctor for every 1,000 people. In China, it's a doctor for every 10,000 people. In sub-Saharan Africa, it's a doctor for every 100,000 people. So you have less trained people. So the system actually has to be smarter. So integrating AI and things into those systems make it better and more easy for those populations to use. So that global scale gives us an advantage, we believe, as well. So I have full respect for Siemens and Philips and the other companies, but we're better. Yes.
Hey, Michael, where are you with open MRI machines? Instead of getting stuffed into the tube, hearing all the noises and getting frightened? Where's the technology there?
Two things on that. We looked at open MRI several years ago to make it, I'll call it completely open. The competitors looked at that. The image quality that you needed just wasn't there, just because of the physics. So the things that we've done since then is there's actually technology that we have that we call silent MR. You talk about the sound that's in there, what's going on. There now, you can buy equipment, a hospital can buy this equipment where that basically sound is from, call it 120 dBs, which is like a jet engine taking off. It's now at about 50 dBs, which is basically the same sound as you hear fans in this room. Yes?
I recall reading or hearing several years ago about some GE engineers that were making like special MRI machines for pediatric use that maybe looked like a spaceship or something to really make that MRI experience better for kids. And it seemed like a cool idea. Is that something that is still going on?
Yes, we actually work with Betty Brin Museum, not too far away, to really understand the psychology for kids. So if you're 5 years old, 6 years old, you're walking in, you need a scan, the system is very intimidating. You're very anxious, you don't know what's going on, you have to lay down on the table, it's cold, all those kind of things. Kids would move around and the scan would get, so they would be sedated a lot. So we did a number of things. So we not only made the look visually different, but we also give the kids a coloring book, a story book, depending on their age, the night before. We educate the parents. And so we put the kids into a sort of a play. So they become a character, whether it be in the jungle, a character on a boat, a character that may be taken off on a spacecraft. And when it's time for them to get an image, we tell them it's time for their character to keep still because things are happening. And kids, in fact, do keep still long enough to take the image. So some places have done studies and the need for sedation has been reduced by almost 80%, being able to do that. So that is something that we offer. Yes?
Congratulations. In this era of hacking right and left, I'm curious how much time you spend on data security.
We spend a ton. We spend a lot. First, thank you for that, but also we work with institutions around the world. The U.S. government, European Union has actually very strong data privacy laws. HIPAA, we've been in a world of HIPAA compliance for a lot of things that we do. We do have our equipment does go and get connected to the internet in a hospital behind their firewall most of the time, but to be able to do service, to be able to save those images off and all those kind of things does require for some of the equipment to be connected. So we take it very seriously around password protection and all those things that you hear about going on. And I was in Australia a few weeks ago, and that was the biggest thing customers wanted to talk to me about because their hospital, not through our equipment, but through other equipment, got hit with one of those, you have to pay Bitcoin, otherwise we're not going to be able to let you use all this equipment in your hospital. So they wanted to know what we're doing. So we have lots of teams working on cyber and cybersecurity. Yes?
Michael, I think most of us have been aware of GE smoothly. I didn't really know it. The NBC signature chimes of bum, bum, bum came, of course, our musical notes, which were named after the company that owned NBC, the General Electric Corporation. The notes are GEC.
Yes, they are. Very little known fact, but very true. I learned that when I was doing that Healthy Imagination, we worked with the NBC folks to really understand how things would resonate, communicating with people, because that's their world. And so they were very helpful for us, but I learned that fact at that point. So thank you, everyone, again. I see there's someone here coming to pull me off.